Hello and welcome to Inside Arizona Business. I'm Dana Cooper. This week, we'll explore nonverbal behavior in the presidential candidates and their choices for vice president. Also, State Senator and candidate for U.S. Congress Tim Bee will be here to give his take on our nation's energy issues. Plus, our 21st Century Workforce segment explores literacy or lack thereof, and Fox restaurant concepts remarkable growth despite the down economy. But first, our top story. The presidential nominees and their running mates are now official. We know something about all four candidates based on what they've told us and what others tell us about them. But what can we discern about the candidates through their nonverbal communication? What can we know about them through their body language? Dr. Barry Goodfield is the president of the Goodfield Institute, and he specializes in the understanding of human behaviors, especially those that are identifiable through nonverbal cues, and he can read these candidates like a book. Barry, it's nice to have you back with us.
Nice to be back with you, as you can imagine.
What is the premise behind your understanding of human behavior based on these nonverbal cues?
Well, in fact, we have conscious and we have unconscious behavior. Conscious behavior is me knowing I'm moving my hands. Unconscious behavior is when I'm doing things and I'm not aware that I'm doing it. The unconscious behavior reflects the core values of who we are, what we think, and what we've been programmed to be. We're a human biocomputer. That's the unconscious part that's most interesting and the part that's most revealing.
Let's get your take on each of the two presidential candidates and their running mate. Beginning with Barack Obama, what can we discern about him based upon the nonverbal cues that he gives us?
Well, you know, he's really kind of a statuesque kind of a guy in a certain way. One of the things that the senator does when he's under stress and pressure is he tends to distance himself. That he'll stand back, turn his head to kind of video left, and it is as if he's there, but he's not there. But one would really be making a mistake to assume that he's not present, not involved, and not focused. But when he's being disingenuous, or there's some real questions about whether he's telling the truth or not, one of the things that we can see, and if you look very carefully, you can see that on the right side of his cheek, there's a twitch, and it's a kind of a twitch that you cannot control. You can't create it, and you can't control it. And it's there. We saw it in the one of the debates in Iowa, particularly when he was being pushed real hard.
What about Senator John McCain? Now, this is a man who's gone through some remarkable stress in his life. Does that stress come out in nonverbal cues when he's speaking?
Of course it does. And stress, you know, our programming in terms of how to deal with pressure, how to deal with stress, is all learned very early in our life. And of course, this is a fellow who didn't just learn it at the Hanoi Hilton. He learned it also in a place called home with a four-star admiral as a father and a grandfather who happened to also be a four-star admiral. So he learned to deal with stress and pressure early. But one of the things that we can see in the presentation that he makes is when he's doing something that he feels is particularly difficult, he'll look down a little bit, his tongue will come out quick, he'll close his eyes, and he turns away. So we can see this with him, and that's when, not necessarily he's lying, but it's when he's feeling pressured, stressed, and doesn't want to answer the question.
Joe Biden, what kind of nonverbal cues does he give us?
Interesting guy, Joe Biden, a man who's been certainly around for a long, long time, and he knows stress and pressure too. I mean, here's a man who learned to deal with difficulty. I mean, he lost his wife, his first wife, and a child in a terrible automobile accident. So he had to learn how to deal with difference and difficulty. One of the things that Senator Biden does when he is under stress and pressure is that he will tend to flutter his eyes very quickly. We know that rapid eye movement relates to anxiety. So when he's being disingenuous, his eyes flutter very quickly. And he also, in that sense, puts on that kind of smile that looks like a roller coaster. So when you see that roller coaster kind of smile fluttering in his eyes and pulling back, then you know you've got Joe Biden in a situation where he is being either disingenuous or being accused of being somehow wrong.
Nobody outside of Alaska knew very much about Sarah Palin prior to this past week's convention. Now we're learning all kinds of things about her. What does she tell us based upon the way she presents?
She's very interesting and certainly a dynamo. Let me be very clear up front with all of them. They're bright, they're functional. Anybody could take the helm if they had to. I don't have a doubt about it. But one of the things you can know about her, a very interesting person, is that when she's under stress and pressure, a couple of things happen and it goes real quick. Here's what happens. When she's under stress and pressure, her eyes get real big just for a moment. They flare up. This eyebrow goes up here. The next thing that happens is there's a difference between the left and the right side of her mouth. And after that happens, you see a slight shifting of the jaw, which is an attempt to drop the pressure, and what we call the masseter muscles, which has got to do with aggression and tension. So you see a slight shift. You know how quick that is? Just like that.
Yeah.
That's how quick she is. And she's bright, she's functional, and somebody would be really stupid to get in her way. When McCain says he wants to show her to the people in Washington, they got something to see when she's there.
Based on what you've seen of Barack Obama and John McCain and their nonverbal cues especially, how would you expect each man to perform under the pressures of the Oval Office?
Well, we basically have an idea about that already. I mean, standing before millions and millions of people is certainly a pretty good indicator of how they're going to react to stress and pressure. But we also equally know their history. So we've got history about them. And what we can know about Obama, Senator Obama, is simple. This is a man who, as I said, will kind of distance himself, look, and then step in, a la Reagan. Reagan was a guy who delegated responsibility. Here's a man who will delegate it, listen carefully, make a position, and then take action. So if you look also now to John McCain, the question here is not the question about his capacity to make decisions, it's the question of the quality of the decisions that he makes sometimes. That it may be that he's such a quick mover, such a fast man on his feet, such a man who has a clear idea of what ought to be and what not ought to be, is that sometimes he makes rapid decisions and they may not be the most appropriate decision. People can follow John McCain, but people may also end up questioning the direction that he's leading you.
Fascinating insights, Dr. Goodfield. Thanks so much for sharing us.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you back with us. If you'd like more information on Barry Goodfield and the Goodfield Institute, go online for links at InsideArizonaBusiness.com.